Well, we're going to be talking about that new moon eclipse. We're going to be talking about that new moon eclipse. Let's do that. There we go. Hello, hello. So, welcome. We're going to be talking about that eclipse this week. I'm not going to get into it just yet. We're going to wait for a couple people to come in. Tap the screen. Hi, how are you? It really helps to tap the screen, then we can get seen and more people can find out about what to expect with this eclipse. Howdy. How you doing? Yeah. So, happy Saturday. I actually took the day off. That doesn't I can't remember the last time I had a Saturday off. So I'm like, oh wow. I was like, what do you mean I don't have readings? What is this? What is this free time? So I was like, I'll do a live stream. So you get me not all worn out and tired at the end of my day. So yeah, so we're gonna be talking about that solar eclipse this week. Okay. Well, the truth is, I thought my parents were flying in tomorrow, but they're flying in today, which is why I took Saturday off. That's what happens when you're super busy, right? Much love. That's all right. They won't even be to the airport till later, so, or at least here, they're still in the air. So, haha. But anyway, that's what I get for not checking my schedule. Yeah, hi. So we're going to be talking about the solar eclipse, and it is on the 20th in the Eastern Hemisphere. It's on the 19th in the Western Hemisphere, especially on the West Coast. So I think it'll be like 1 in the morning and some change actually on the East Coast. It is not visible. So since we've got a bunch of people here, thank you for tapping the screen. So here's rule number 1 with eclipses. And I see a lot of people talking about it, people regurgitating blog posts, bloggers don't. There are bloggers and then there are bloggers. Bloggers who have a speciality in a subject tend to be pretty good. The ones that just work on the clickbait websites tend not to give the correct information. So here's something you need to know about eclipses. Number 1, they have to be visible for maximum impact. Okay, this is not visible in the United States. I showed the the map on my latest video, right? On my eclipse video. It has to be visible. So unless you're in Southeast Asia, okay, unless you're in Australia, unless you're in New Zealand, Micronesia, and the South Pacific Islands. So I don't even think it's visible in Hawaii when I look at that map. It's south of Hawaii. So those areas are going to see the greatest impact. Those areas where it is visible, okay? When it's not visible, it's more like a new moon on steroids. But this one we're going to treat a little differently. And I'm going to talk about this on the podcast too. So if you're not following the Awake Space Astrology podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure you do, okay? Because I'm going to go into more detail there. Because I know on a live stream you're popping in and you're popping out. So, I'll give the information as best I can here. And then make sure you tune into the podcast so you don't miss anything. You can do your dishes. I can help you do your dishes. I can help you on your commute, right? So I'll be talking about how it's going to impact the houses really in detail on the podcast. So here's what you need to know. First of all, don't freak out. Number 1, don't freak out. I see this energy more like a scalpel where you can take things that no longer serve you and just kind of scrape them out. Okay, so to me, we need to treat this. The reason why is because the moon is at 29 degrees of Aries. And so it is the beginning of the end of a process. So you need to think about things you've been wanting to clear out, not necessarily other people, it's so easy to put your attention on other people when you can get rid of somebody that doesn't, mesh with you And you're going to end up with somebody just like that in your life if you don't do the internal work. Okay. I'm not saying anybody deserves anything, but if you're not changing your mindset, if you're not seeing your value, if you're not treating yourself better, you're going to be on a repeat, on a cycle. Ask me how I know. Been there, done that. But if you don't change things up and release. So there's going to be people saying you can't set intentions on this moon. That's BS. You can. And here's how you do it. You're setting intentions for release. Okay. With this Aries new moon. It's at 29 degrees. This is a time to begin and ending. Okay. So like I said, we're treating it a little bit like a full moon. We're going to look at a release. Okay. Finishing up a new process. Okay. Oh, thank you so much. So you want to look at what, like, I would release self-sabotage. I would release ideas. Like if you're really stuck in the, oh, well, I have imposter syndrome. If that's the story you tell every time you get into a group, that needs to stop because it's not helping you. That's getting attention for the wrong reasons and it needs to end. Okay. Have you ever been in like a group, like an entrepreneur group, a business networking group, or a spiritual group, and people will be like, you can always see the people who walk in new and they're chomping at the bit to tell whatever story it is. Like, this has been my life and I have imposter syndrome. It isn't getting you the right attention and it isn't serving you. You need to stop it. Okay. And first of all, it's made up. It's made up. Nobody knows what the hell you're doing. Do you think the leaders of this world know what they're doing? Look at where things are at. So dump that crap, okay? So I would release imposter syndrome. I would release the narratives you tell that don't serve you. Okay. The stories you tell that don't serve you, the perception of self that doesn't serve you. So if you had people in your life who were treating you really, really poorly when you were growing up, maybe you got bullied, maybe you didn't fit in, maybe you were different, maybe you had undiagnosed autism, undiagnosed ADHD, and you were the weirdo, right? That story of I never fit in, I never belong, I never, all that, never is a really long time, first of all. These are the things you want to release on this new moon, okay? So, and that is manifesting. You can't bring what you want in if you have stuff in the way, okay? Point blank. So, but what you want to do is manifest the open space to let something in. And so you want to do it in a positive way, that you don't want to just say, well, I'm not going to say this anymore. Well, you got to know, what are you going to say? You have to have a replacement for it. I put some ideas up on the last video I did, the one about the eclipse. I put some samples and I'll talk about that more on the podcast as well. So thank you for tapping the screen and thank you for sharing. It means a lot. It helps us get seen on the FYP. Some other things you need to know. Again, if you're in Southeast Asia, Micronesia, Pacific Islands, Australia, New Zealand, there might be seismic activity. There could be fires. And I know I had an Australian person say it would be really rare for us to have bushfires this time of year. And I was like, well, I really see something like fires. It could be arson. It could be because of weather. It doesn't mean that it's your normal bushfire. There's some potential. This is a lot of energy. Anytime you're at the last degree of a sign, or the first degree, the 0 to 29, this isn't degree theory. This is classical astrology. These are called the anaretic degrees. And 0 degrees holds all the potential. It's the newness. Think of the strawberry that started the Big Bang. That would be 0 degree energy. It holds all the potential. The 29 degree is the full might and maturity of the sign. It is not exhausted. I don't know who the hell started that rumor. It is not. It is the mastery of the sign. Now, energy expresses in a multitude of ways. If you have these degrees in your chart, it's different than when I'm talking about mundane astrology. You have free will, okay? You have free will. The mundane does not. The mundane operates on a different set of rules. That's why you cannot read mundane charts the same as you read a natal chart. They are different skills. And I see a lot of people like mixing it up when there's no mix and match here. You know, when we're interpreting, we feel into possibility and probability. But the rules, right? The rules are a different story. So when we look at mundane astrology, and I'm giving, hey, I think there could be fires, volcanic action. One of the reasons I'm saying that isn't just the 29-degree Aries potential, which isn't going to necessarily work at the highest expression of that energy, right? Because it doesn't really have a choice to choose. It's probably very disruptive because we're in a time of massive systemic change. So there's got to be some big events. But just a little bit after that eclipse, the moon pops in, or the sun pops into Taurus, and then the moon, or the moon first, and then the sun. I have to look at the chart again. I'll talk about that directly on the podcast, because when I'm recording the podcast, I have my phone and my software in front of me. My phone is right here, and I'm not looking at my software. So, but anyway, so the moon pops into Taurus right after, into a square with Pluto. This is a little nerve-wracking for me. And again, I see when I pulled up the chart, and I'll show you the chart here in a minute, I'll put it in the background. When you look, that chart is really west heavy. And west of me, and that's what you have to remember, west of me is Asia. Okay, because I'm on the west coast of the United States. So when I look west, that used to confuse me as a kid because I grew up on the west coast, and they'd be like, it's east. I'm like, it's across the Pacific, which is west. I was like, these people don't know how to read a map when I was like 5 or 6. But anyway, so there, it's very west heavy. And so I'm a little concerned about Taiwan. So if you have loved ones in Taiwan, I have friends who are from Taiwan and live in the States, as well as friends in Malaysia, Indonesia. They already had a fairly sizable earthquake in Indonesia. There might be more seismic activity. It's always pretty active in the Asia Pacific region, but we could see something sizable. So if you're in that area, if you're in where that eclipse can be seen, just have your earthquake kits ready. It's really hard to prepare for that. It's also very, very difficult to predict. Okay, remember, if a geologist can't do it, it's really hard for an astrologer to pinpoint an exact location. But as you know, I never give a public prediction unless I have a certain level of certainty. Okay. When it comes to political predictions, I don't say anything until I'm 80% sure. When it comes to like weather and seismic activity, I got to be about 40 to 50% sure, because those are so hard to predict. Okay. We can get close, we can get regional, but when you're getting into pinpointing locations, you need more time than I have to run charts. And even then, it's still kind of not always so easy. So we've got a lot going on, guys. Again, on a personal level, this is kind of the beginning of the end of a new process. So if it's a time to, like, if you've been working on your self-esteem, because remember, we're looking at Aries. If you've been working on your self-esteem, if you've been trying not to live with a whole lot of external validation, oh my gosh, thank you so much. If you've been trying to build yourself up, then you really need to, kind of shore that up. Your intentions should be around continuing that. Yeah. And for those of you who do have the moon at 29 degrees of Aries, this is your lunar return. A lunar return isn't a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a chart. Like, that's what people don't understand. It's a chart, just like a Saturn return is. There's all these people who make stuff like it. We can thank the boomer astrologers for making shit up, okay? But anyway, it's a chart, and it shows your month's activities. So when I do a transit reading for somebody, a lot of times I'll pull up their solar or lunar returns. When I do the year ahead charts, I do, which those aren't open right now. I'll open them I open them 2 times a year at the solstice, and when I get enough bookings where I go, that's a lot of those readings, I close it because it's intense. It's a lot of work for me because we do the solar return for the year that you're in, the solar return for the year that you're moving into. We do all of the lunar returns for the year, and it's creepy accurate on timing. But anyway, so your lunar return, if you have a 29-degree Aries moon, it's gonna be a really powerful month. And the nice thing about it being at 29 degrees Aries, it'll be intense, but you're used to intensity. That's kind of how you drive, right? It's nice it's not technically square Pluto. It is by the math, but it's not by, it's like if Pluto was in Capricorn, it would be a craptastic month for you. Pluto's in Aquarius, it diminishes that square. Now, if you have a 0-degree Taurus moon, have fun. It's gonna be a little wild. So it's just gonna be intense. Yeah, it would be, well, actually having the sun at 29 degrees, that isn't your personality, it's your energy levels, okay? So I know everybody says it's personality, but that's based off of people trying to make astrology and psychology one and the same, and you can use astrology and psychology paired, but the sun is not the personality. The sun is the energy levels. It's like your dynamo. So if you like are into computers, the way I like to describe it is it's your power supply. It's your power supply. It's the battery, right? It's your dynamo. And so it's going to be a little less emotionally intense, but you'll maybe have a lot of energy. You might be like a super hypo with that moon right on top of you. But remember, this happens at 9:30-ish and some change p.m. Pacific, 1:30-ish a.m. Eastern. So you might have trouble sleeping. You might have, just weird dreams, what have you. But it's not visible here. So the malefic effect of the eclipse is actually only, like when they talk about the malefic impact, that's only where it's visible. And I mean, like, so there is a rule. If it is visible where you're at, you really shouldn't go outside. And that is both from Western tropical astrology, but also in Bazi. Because I learned that from Ask Auntie Amy. I don't know if you follow her, but she's a very cool Bazi astrologer. That's a form of Chinese astrology. And they have the same rule, which is don't go outside during an eclipse. I have briefly been outside during a visible solar eclipse, like back in 2017. I risked it. I'm still here. But what happened in the Pacific Northwest is a really good example of what happens when an eclipse is visible. It signifies natural events. And so that summer, there were fires from British Columbia all the way down through Southern Oregon. And I know because I was driving. Not only did it rain ash in Olympia, where I was living, I was driving, and I had to, even around Medford, you just couldn't, well, of course, Medford, because it gets the air inversions, but you couldn't breathe. The smoke was so bad. So I had to drive a lot farther than I wanted to till I made it to Mount Shasta to spend the night on my way to LA. So those are things to remember. If it's visible, it is signifying there will be natural events, okay? It can be intense. That's why I'm looking out for Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. I think there could be stuff. We could see some volcanic action after the eclipse when the moon pops into Taurus, because again, it moves into a square with Pluto, and then it's moving towards the node, then it's moving into a conjunction with Uranus. There tends to be a little bit of shake, rattle, and roll. And then, of course, it'll be sextile Mars in Cancer. So there might be something with, it'll be interesting anyway. So we're lucky that that Cancer Mars is still like early degrees. Well, it's not, it's moving into the mid degrees of Cancer, and it won't be square that eclipse. That would also be a lot. Every time I look at the chart, I'm just like, wow, I'm really glad this is not happening and that it's just this, because it could be pretty wild. And I think it's also going to have to do with global economy. Again, politically, my eye is on Taiwan. Okay. On an internal level, you want to use this as a time of release. Okay. We treat this new moon because it's at 29 degrees of Aries and because it's an eclipse. You want to use it a little bit like a precision tool to release. Your intentions that you will set should be for releasing any of your limiting beliefs. But instead of saying, oh, I'm not going to think that anymore, I'm not going to believe that anymore, because you're empowering it, you want to reframe that language really, really carefully so that you're going to say something like, I release imposter syndrome and I embrace true confidence. You know, I can accept that I have enough experience to move forward. I am open to, like, if you're feeling lost, I get that a lot. People say, Laurie, I'm feeling lost. I'm feeling lost. And I'll be like, how does feeling found feel? Okay. Because you have to remember, I'm a coach as well as I am an astrologer and I'm a consultant. So certified in a lot of different things. But why would you emphasize what isn't working for you? You need to, everybody right now, because we're moving in shaky global conditions, okay? Because we're moving, and this is economic conditions. That's why the politics are getting weird, is that their genius ideas for making the economy the way it is doesn't work. And so we have to empower our own selves in understanding our talents, our strengths, what makes us resilient. Resiliency is not internal strength. It is the ability to bounce back after challenging circumstances. It's adaptability. It's flexibility. Okay. And I studied with the founding researcher of resiliency studies, H. Stephen Glenn, PhD. He did the original research in 1973. Okay. He was a really cool dude. He was trying to figure out, actually, this is why his research kind of got squashed. He was trying to figure out how to prevent the school to prison pipeline. But that didn't make any money. But anyway, he was a wonderful man. And so understanding how to adapt and flow. And when you know what your skills are, because in school, we always got told to focus on what we weren't good at, like what we needed to work on more, the needs improvement, right? And we didn't get to lean into our natural interests, our natural strengths, our natural intelligences. There is more than one way to be intelligent, okay? And there's more than one way to be talented. We have been given a very narrow lens because then it makes it so only a few special few get to have the good life. Because that's the natural order. It's not the natural order. That is not how we're designed, okay? All of the imbalances have been caused because we decided to impose an order. And you can hear more about that on my latest episode of the podcast where I talk with Asanabe. If you don't know who Asanabe is, he's a TikTok creator here. He's a spiritual mentor and teacher of the seventh flame prophecy. He is absolutely inspiring, and we wound up our conversation in episode 16 in part 2, and it was fire, man. It was so good. And we were talking a lot about these things. He and I have different messages, but they intersect. They're complementary. And for me, this eclipse is a really good time to let go of dependence on social ideals that limit you, okay? Because it's at the end of Aries. This is a time to actualize yourself, but you can't actualize if you're holding on to beliefs that aren't true about you, okay? If you're like, oh, I never get ahead. I was born on the wrong side of the tracks to the wrong people at the wrong time, and I'll never be able to make it. Well, as long as that's the prevailing idea, doesn't mean it's not the facts, right? I'm not saying lie to yourself, but you might be like, because I grew up struggling, maybe my family was poor. Maybe, okay, my family was poor. We didn't have the resources. It's hard to be under-resourced, but you know what? I'm creative. I'm really good at figuring stuff out. I was able to repurpose stuff. I'm really good at repurposing. I'm really good at finding a deal. I'm really good at finding creative solutions and making stuff work. That's the intentions and the affirmations you want to write down instead of the other side, because notice the energy. Like, I'm really good at this. This is what I'm good at. Okay. Right? And you can be good at something and not like doing it, right? You can be good at something and not like doing it. So then you go, this energizes me and this doesn't. Just because I have this degree in this field, because I made a decision at 18 to do something and I followed through with it, and then I found out just because I was good at it, I don't really like it. Great. Now you know that. Then put down what you really do like to do. And if you don't know enough to do it, you can write down things like, well, I may not know how, but I'm capable of learning. Okay. And if you think, oh my gosh, I learned slow, don't do that. Don't do that. You could, if it's still a really strong thought, these are the affirmations you'll use on this eclipse, because what we're doing is we're getting rid of, okay, so we're treating a little bit like a full moon. We're going to release, okay? We're going to release, and we're releasing the things that are in our way that impact our self-esteem, that impact our understanding of self. This is a journey, by the way. It's not a one and done. You're not going to wake up the next day going, Eureka, I have it all figured out. You're not going to. That's not how it works. I know that's why people lean into magic or metaphysics. I was thinking the same thing, okay? But what it is it sets a process in motion, and it'll move a lot quicker than you think, okay? And also, why is holding yourself back? Now, I'm not telling people that they need to quit their day job that they hate and start something with no resources. Please don't do that. That's not a good idea. But what you can do is make a decision and go, okay, I'm going to let go of the can'ts and I'm going to look at how I can, right? So, hi, Malcolm. What are we doing? What are we doing? Do we want up? Okay. Hi, buddy. Okay. So, thanks, bud. You got goobers. All right, we'll take care of them after the life. So anyway, by the way, I don't have my glasses on. So, if you want to listen to my podcast, go to the Awake Space Astrology podcast. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple, Google Play. It's linked in my bio. All of what I do is linked in my bio. Also, real quick, I need to celebrate Mackenzie, who is McDubs, here on TikTok, and Casey, who's Casey Felton Louie here on TikTok. They each finished their 40th readings, each on the same day. That's a lot of readings. That's a lot of readings. And those are all their solo readings. They did, many readings where they were observing me and then me supervising them. So they're absolutely fantastic. I hear nothing but beautiful things about all of our astrologers. But I wanted to give them a shout out because all of my astrologers are carrying forth my legacy. So that's a beautiful thing. Another thing I want to celebrate is we reached 800 patrons. So thank you, patrons. The patrons sponsor the podcast. Without them, there is no me. So thank you for getting to 800. We're only 200 away from our goal. I'm still figuring out what treat I'm going to hand out for that one. I'm kind of excited. We might do like a special little class or something just to a thank you. So, but yeah, I can't read. Hang on. Oh. Do I think human ego inspires astrology? Okay, here's the deal. You don't have to believe in astrology. Okay, human ego. That would be people interpreting, okay? But astrology is like gravity. It just is. It's like we're reading the cosmic clock. Now, some people don't tell time very well. And some people don't have good interpretation skills. And some people aren't really astrologers. They just make content. Okay, Malcolm, we have to lay down. Okay. But it is never an astrologer's job to be humble. okay? Because we put an extraordinary amount of time and study. It's like data science, and we need ego. Ego is not meant to be killed. That is a misunderstanding of metaphysical principles, okay? You're not supposed to kill off your ego. You're supposed to work with it. Our ego actually protects us. So now, there are concepts that I believe need to be removed and changed because they're steeped in patriarchy. So, like the dignities, I have no interest in those. Those are classist. They're hierarchical. So you're not entirely wrong, but you do not need to believe in astrology for it to exist any more than you need to believe in gravity. Now, whether someone is good at interpreting is another story. I think it's the one skill that is not taught firmly enough. That is why I started in my career, when I started 3 decades ago, every teacher I worked with went, oh my God, Laurie, you need to focus on interpretation because you're the one who's going to move it forward because you are communication central. And in fact, a good friend of mine who's a very good mundane astrologer, he laughs and he goes, if it was a Star Trek world, I'd put you into communications. And I was like, I will take that. So learning how to interpret is important, but you don't need to believe in astrology for it to be real. I don't sit and try to make believers out of people. To me, that's very evangelical, and I'm not here to even evangelize. I'm also a spiritual atheist. So I think we need to unpack a lot of the things that keep people back in life, and those a lot were caused by religion, which is often a huge part of culture. So I think it's very, very important to understand where the guilt, shame, and blame and the need to be humble. I get tone policed by women a lot. And I'm not saying you're tone policing, but I'm saying on my videos, it is rarely men that are tone policing me. They're usually arguing about the physics. Women tone police me. They tell me to be humble. They tell me not to be arrogant. They tell me to be careful. You made that prediction because there's been other professional astrologers who lost their reputations. And I'm like, especially on political ones. And I'm like, well, good for me. I'm a political analyst and was before I was an astrologer. And I never give a prediction without feeling 80% certain on that. But so I don't like being tone policed. And I know you didn't. It's not at you, but I'm letting you know what we go through. Okay. So people need to understand that humility is not needed spiritually unless you are a very privileged person who is arrogant and doesn't have anything to back it up. But confidence is not arrogance. And so if somebody is certain of something and they're standing up for a prediction, then that means, I usually, when somebody's like really certain, if they're an astrologer, and I'm not, then I'll be like, okay, I'll take a look at the astrology and see. And I'll be like, well, maybe they're a little biased and they're letting that get in the way. That can happen, but, I'll just let you know, for example, in 2016, in a bunch of astrology Facebook groups where we were kind of tossing around predictions, I was like, Hillary's not going to win, and it's going to be the orange one. And oh my God, the amount of hate I got because people thought I liked him. I didn't like him. I've never liked him. I didn't like him when I was a teenager and he was on Time magazine and being interviewed by Barbara Walters and all that bullshit. He was always gross. But he had the transits, okay? And people misunderstand that a prediction equals your preference. Now, when I'm predicting his downfall and I'm chuckling about it, yeah, that's biased, but it's also, if it wasn't there, it wouldn't be there. And which just want you to remember, I called the indictment by the month. It was getting close, though. March 30th. Are you kidding me? I was sitting there going, come on. I normally won't do that because it's nerve-wracking. So it's a little crazy. So with this eclipse, you have to be aware that there are a lot of people going to call for the end of the world, or that this is horrible, and it will be volatile in Asia. Okay, Southeast Asia, not Central Asia, but in the, we're looking at Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Micronesia, like Papua New Guinea as well. The South Pacific Islands, we're looking at Australia, we're looking at New Zealand, not Hawaii. I think Hawaii's too north, but maybe Guam. These are all areas that might be impacted. Now, it just could be people are grouchy. That's the low end. People are grouchy. Maybe they're a little hypersensitive. You might see a few more bar fights, things like that. There could be seismic activity. There could be volcanic activity. I would say more likely after the eclipse than before. And that's because the moon is moving into Taurus right after the eclipse, and it will move into an immediate square with Pluto. So that's very, very volatile energy. On an individual level, again, I'll go through what it means when the moon is transiting your houses. So you go look at the video pinned on my page to find out how to determine what transits are and what they mean, because your natal chart doesn't change. That's a static thing. Transits are the moving celestial bodies, and you can see them. We put them outside of the chart, okay? And so you can see what they activate. So think about it. They're walking through rooms in a house, basically, right? The planets are taking a house tour, all right? And they activate the energy of the room, or what we call the house. They activate that area. And I'll talk about that on the Awake Space Astrology podcast. So make sure you go to the link in my bio and you find it on whatever your favorite player is and you subscribe, okay? Do that, all right? But yeah, hang on a second. Do I see any positive change within 20 years? Yeah. I think it's going to be very, very ugly getting there, because, and I've been talking about this a lot in my live streams, it has to get ugly. Things didn't get worse. They became revealed. Okay. So for the people who are often on the other end of patriarchy and dominance and control, which is marginalized people, it appears worse, okay? But what we're seeing is the result of not taking care of things properly, sweeping things under the rug, putting Band-Aids on problems. We were screaming in the 80s that R.B. Wade needed to be codified, because and everybody like, oh, well, but it's precedent. Well, we knew, so. And people would just listen to the talking heads on the news, or the politicians who just wanted to get reelected, right? And remember, that is going to erode every other right on the planet, in this country, because it has to do with being able to make decisions for yourself. It's not even the subject matter. It's about having the ability to be autonomous and make a decision for yourself, and not treated like chattel and inhuman. We've never been codified as people. So these things are rising to the surface with the meanness and almost the cartoon level villain energy. Like, it's so ridiculously evil. And so this has to go up to be taken care of. And honestly, one of the reasons we have these problems is because there were so few people fighting and voting. Okay, so voting is just one thing. I don't think people understand. Voting is not enough. You've got to be involved in your local community. You've got to go to meetings, school board meetings, even if you don't have kids. Even if you don't have kids, those kids grow up to be your doctor, your lawyer, the car mechanic, or the guy that breaks into your house, or the woman who breaks into your house, or the them that does it. Who do you want doing things in your community? They're people. Right? We act like kids and adults are not the same. They are the same. They're human beings deserving of respect. Okay? They need to learn social skills. Yeah, they got to gain information. But acting like kids are evil, no, we need those things together. But people were not involved. So there's these awakenings. These awakenings are not spiritual inherently. It's kind of a side Benny. It's cultural, social, and political. And I think we're going to see more conflict come before we can rectify it. But in the end of the day, I think we'll see a much better situation over time. But that is only if we empower ourselves. If we wait for a chosen one, if we wait for a great avatar to arrive, well, you're going to be waiting a whole long time because nothing's going to change. The change is up to us. And so we have to do the change right now. Between now and the end of November 2024, on an individual level, we have a huge opportunity to change ourselves within. And it's not making ourselves different. It's not making ourselves more socially acceptable. It's about aligning into our actual self. Like it, and that's a walk, that's a journey, and you won't have it all done, especially if you just started, but you won't want, it never ends. Self-actualization is an unfolding, right? You're not done till you're dead. Okay. But even if you start your journey now, you'll be in a pretty good place by the end of 2024, when now Pluto will be in Aquarius for good. Because you have to remember, Pluto's doing the cha-cha between Aquarius and Capricorn. Okay. So we're not in the beginning of the Pluto and Aquarius era. We're at the end of the Pluto in Capricorn era. Okay. We're at the end of the Pluto and Capricorn era. So we're getting the luxury of a sneak peek to see what should our playbooks be. And well, first of all, we got to work on the inside of ourselves, the inside. Okay. We've got to get rid of our limiting beliefs. And you're not going to get them all, but you gotta stop talking trash about yourself. You've got to stop hanging on to the things that hold you back. So what if your third grade teacher said you'd never write? Or you would never be able to read properly, or that you were dumb. There's some mean teachers out there, but guess what? Their opinion is not the one that matters. Your opinion matters. I bet you do just fine now, and it's easy to let that happen. I remember, I'm visually impaired. I've been visually impaired my whole life. This eye is blind. That's why I get cranky when I have to stop and read the things, the comments, because it's very itty bitty writing and it hurts my eyes to read it. That's why my mods have you in the questions. But when I was 14, I was taking an art class, and I had this teacher. He was such a jerk. Okay. And we were working on photorealism, and I told him in the beginning, I said, "Sir, I can't see. My glasses were this thick." I'm not kidding. They didn't make compressed lenses back then, and they only made glass. So my nose was flat. It had scars on the sides from the weight of my glasses. And so I did my very level best to do the assignment, but I don't see, right? By the way, Renoir was going blind. That's why he did pointillism. That was more how I saw without my glasses, right? Anyway, he told me, after looking at my painting, he said, "Well, I'll pass you if you promise never to do art again." Human beings create because that is our nature. Arbitrary assignment of what is good and bad is hubris. Okay? For real. I heard he died a horrible death, so I'm okay with that. I did not have anything to do. It was after I grew up. So just letting you know. But when I got told that, I was like, good, what a creep. So I was 31 when I met someone named Granny Annie, who promised to teach me how to spin yarn on a spinning wheel for reals, which I do. And anyway, when I went over to take my very first spinning lesson, she says, "Oh, I'll teach you how to dye yarn as well, and you'll be able to make beautiful fiber art." And the mention of the word art, I shrunk back and I said, "Well, I don't think I'll be able to do that very well. I don't have a creative bone in my body." And I'll never forget, she had her glasses on her nose like this, and she went, "We'll see about that." She never argued with me. And she helped bring my creativity back, because I stopped because the teacher said so. I get it. When I tell you, I get the pain of an authority figure telling you you're not good at this. But they are not the only authority. And so if somebody said, you're not good at this, you're not, maybe you wanted to dance, and take dance lessons, and a music teacher or a dance teacher said, well, you suck. You can still go back as an adult and learn. You don't have to be good. You can just enjoy it. Okay? We don't always have to make it a thing. The fifth house isn't about being the diva. It's not about winning a Tony. It's not about being an Oscar winner. It's not about writing the great American novel. It's not about being the best soccer player in the world or the best football player. It is about creativity. Okay? And so that the things we think about ourselves that takes it away, limits us. We have put so much emphasis on the second, sixth, and 10th houses, which the second house, we also don't understand what it really is about. We call it money. We look at the job. You need a job where you're working for somebody else, because if you look at how patriarchy works, it's all about your value being attached to someone owning you. So I belong to this company. I work for this person. And think of how entitled they are. Like, I've been reading articles now where they think if you work from home, you've got to spend every moment. Are they getting their freaking work done? Then it doesn't matter what they're doing when, right? It is about owning. It's ownership. It's about making human beings chattel. This Aries new moon at 29 degrees gives you beautiful I'm thinking 6 words at the same time. Slow it down, Laurie. Opportunity to do a little psychic surgery on yourself and let go of the need to be attached to other or follow social cultural ideals about you need to be this way. Because you don't. You need to be you. You didn't come on this earth to be anybody else except yourself. And if you didn't fit in, that is not a flaw. Because social structures and constructs and cultural constructs are imposed by human ego. Because somebody really benefits, and it's somebody at the top. It's never somebody at the bottom that benefits from it. But at the bottom, we will argue with one another to stay low. Notice the minute somebody starts to get successful after trying to pull themselves up, people try to tear them back down. Have you noticed that? Right? That's not a good thing. We should support that. And likewise, if you're going on the way up, you need to pull others with you instead of stomping on their heads and keeping them down because, oh, now you're in charge. That's like being a little kid. That's the mindset of a little kid that says, when I grow up, I'm not going to, I'll be the one with power. And so we have to understand our own power on the inside. And we have to understand that we can live by... Bye, Carrie. Love you. You guys should follow Carrie, medium Carrie Wilson. She's a great medium. She texted and scared me yesterday because of one of my mentors who has passed told her to tell me hi. And I was like, whoa, that was awesome. But yeah, so this eclipse is our opportunity to let go of some of the ideas about ourselves that aren't serving us. Okay. And what I don't want you to do is put your attention on other people that said it, because again, I didn't need to carry that with me for so long. I just did because I wasn't conscious and I didn't take action on it. Okay. And I still ended up requiring a teacher to tell me I was good. And she actually wouldn't do that. Because when I learned to spin, she'd look at me and I'd be like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Because remember, we're taught to get things right. And she'd go, is it holding together? I'd be like, yeah. She goes, sure. She goes, don't worry about it. You'll learn technique later. Just keep going. Enjoy the process. Enjoy making something. Enjoy using your hands. She was the best person. So she didn't say, oh, you're wonderful. You're the best, blah, 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 blah. She'd just be like, is it working? And that was a gift. That's a good teacher, not one imposing their idea of what makes something good or bad, but just encouraging a learning process. So you want to do that for yourself. This has a lot to do with this eclipse coming up. Oh, good to see you. Yes. Yes. I know. I took the day off because my parents are flying in for a week's visit, and I thought it was tomorrow. But I took Saturday off, and I was like, oh my God, how did I take Saturday off? Well, duh. I go back and look at their itinerary, and I'm like, oops. That's why I have the day off. Although they'll probably be pretty tired once they get to the hotels, so. But yeah, you guys will get to see me go live with my mom probably on Thursday. We're going to the San Diego Zoo, and we've never been, so we're going to have fun. My mom's a hoot and a half. You'll be like, oh my God, why can't you be fun like your mom? I always hear people are like, when I've never met someone before, my parents are new, your mom and dad are the life of the party. I'm like, I know they are. I know they are. So yeah. Right? Super fun. I'm super excited. So, that'll be. Yeah, I've been waiting. I've wanted to go forever in a day. I've never gone. So, thank you, Kirsten. Yeah, I'm super excited. So, I've never been to the San Diego Zoo. I've always wanted to. I've never made time. And it's one of those things, I also moved to California like the year before the lockdowns. So I never got a chance to, so that's what I hear. I'm super excited. And in fact, we're going on the 20th. Yeah. Well, I'm not fond of most zoos, but I hear this one is very good, and there's a lot of species that can't live in the wild because we've destroyed their habitat, and I think they kind of focus on that. But yeah. The weather was too awful. Yeah, I can't. I won't go to SeaWorld or something like that because I don't believe, the orcas and the dolphins don't need to be in captivity. They still, yeah. Yeah. But there's other, like smaller zoos I don't tend to go to because if they don't have the right kind of habitats, I can't do it, So. Portland Zoo is nice in Portland, Oregon. They take very, very good care of the animals there, and they have really nice habitats. So. A tornado watch until 10. I'm not surprised. With Pluto and Aquarius, that's going to be like transformative air-like stuff. And then we've got the moon in Aquarius right now. It's almost in Pisces. It's a couple of hours away from Pisces. So my plans today are to clean my house. I need to do that. I've been working on it. I work so much. And when you work from home, so I'm just trying to get it tidied. I'll get a housekeeper in. I keep saying that and then I don't do it, but I'm going to do it for real. Because I work so much that I'm basically up. I get my work done. I collapse. I go to sleep and then I'm back up. The good news is I've got good helpers, so I'm starting to be able to delegate a little bit more, which is nice. The problem is 90% of what I do is here, and I have to get it on paper. So, but yeah, because this is what I do full time. But yeah, right, yeah, because the good stuff is all in here, so getting it out is the point. 111, super exciting. I actually can't use Afterpay because they only do products. They don't do service businesses. There is the PayPal installments that is available, but I'm having to look at other options for when I get into the professional mentoring and like the higher, they call it like a higher ticket offering, so that there's financing options for people. That's all new to me. So I'm learning it. But Afterpay doesn't let, I saw another one, but it's only like Shopify. So no, they're all product based. I'll check Klarna again, but they're all product based. Like they want product because now, and I get why. So one of the reasons I used to go after other astrologers and even psychics is you get so many people who aren't doing the real thing. They're just kind of grifting, that there's a lot of chargebacks, and it makes this a risky industry. And so I have an extremely good financial history with my institutions as far as how things go. People don't, and so I don't have those problems, but if I'm in an industry, then they can restrict that for payment gateways. So I'm going to try to get a hold of Wix again and see if I can do it. We'll see. Am I psychic? Yes, but I don't do that for a living. So if that makes sense, I don't like tuning into other people's energy if I can help it. When I'm doing a reading and there's maybe, because I'm both intuitive and psychic, but also a natural, like I was born able to talk to dead people. I keep that dialed way down because it's very distracting. And, I know people think it's cool, but it can be annoying. So I keep it dialed down and I don't do it. Like I don't do these readings. So yeah. I don't think we'll see a decrease in anything. I think we'll see an increase. I think we'll see an increase. Why would Pluto in Aquarius make it better? And if we're not careful, Pluto in Pisces will make it very difficult for people to practice these things professionally again. So we need to, yeah. So it can be extremely overwhelming. So I didn't even know what it was when I was a kid. Well, I mean, I knew people were not alive, but that never scared me. But I also don't want to be somebody's freak show either. So that's why I do astrology. Astrology, you do not need to be intuitive or psychic. It is like data science, okay? Now the intuition comes into how we interpret, okay? The intuition comes into how we interpret. So knowing, because you have a field of possibility and probability. And so honing and learning your intuition, that's why I have my apprentices studying, well, not all, but some are studying with Miss Medium Carrie Wilson, because she's giving them another set of skills. I've told them you want to study a whole bunch of stuff because the more you study, the better astrologer you are. So, any good books? Mine. Go check out my books on my page. I am writing actual useful information. So, they're called Astro Guides. They are succinct. You're welcome. They're visual too. I made them pretty. And Casey's my editor on those because, again, I'm visually impaired, which really sucks. I've been a writer all of my life, but just with age, the poor peepers. So it just makes it, I always say my typos are free, but yeah, thank you. My books are excellent. Thank you. Yeah, Astro Guide Volume 1, Issue 1 is, it's a great resource for anyone who's in the beginning stages of their studies. Now, I know a lot of you think you've studied astrology for a long time. you've been interested in signs and planets, you might have a basic understanding of the vocabulary. But what I consider beginning astrology and intermediate and advanced is a little different. It's more from an old school lens, and I'm not putting you down. I'm just saying I've built these like you can keep the PDF on your phone and use it as a reference. Be like, what was that again? Oh yeah. My favorite thing about the I call it the ultimate cheat sheet, but my favorite thing about it is the story of the houses. The story of the houses really gives you an understanding of how our consciousness unfolds through the houses from the first around to the 12th. It's a very beautiful understanding because everybody wants to think of things in chunks, this house. And it's like, you're thinking of it like plastic pieces, that fit into holes. That's not how it works. The energy, it flows into itself. It works in polarities. It's complex, but it's beautiful, because you're complex, you're beautiful. So of course your astrology is going to be complex and beautiful. There's no empty houses. Just because it doesn't have a placement doesn't mean it's empty. It's not empty. So now you know why you took 3 weeks off. There you go. No, the eclipse cannot be, it's not a preview of a Saturn return. That's not how that works. No. Nope. Saturn return is a Saturn return. I actually have a whole class on that's recorded, and you can catch it in the link in my bio. I've got a free walkthrough just explaining the basics of a Saturn return on YouTube. Okay. But if you want to go a little deeper, it's on sale through the link in my bio right now. So there's a lot of misunderstandings of what things are. People are either trying to avoid it or trying to figure it out. It's if you live to these things, these are timing. These are markers in human development. Okay. And the people who say, mine was horrendous. Well, you probably had other transits going on. So all the people who had their Saturn returns in like 2020, hello, it wasn't just Saturn. They had Pluto and Jupiter involved. I just keep calling them little spiritual warriors because that was a lot. But yeah. Placidus makes more... I don't think Placidus does make it more complex. I think if you want to be a good astrologer, you need to understand that it is complex. The concepts are complex. Being human is complex. I think that oversimplification is part of the dumbing down of the world. This let's make everything easy. Life isn't easy. Life is complex. Life is beautiful, but it is complex. It's not super simple, and neither are people. And you have to understand that the original astrology coming out of Mesopotamia. It was designed by a society that was forming patriarchy. Okay. Yeah, Placidus is what I do. And that's because I studied 14 different house signs before I landed on it. It is literally the most accurate whole sign. You think it's easier. It is not easier because it does not help you understand yourself or life in clear terms. It's like shotgunning. It's wide berth. So when people are like, well, the Greeks didn't worry about transit in their orbs so much. Yeah, because they couldn't do the math. The math wasn't invented until the 11th century. We can grow and understand and refine. If you want to stay static, you know what the Greeks also did? They put lead on their faces. I'm trying to count a cops and married siblings sometimes. So, stop edifying cultures. We can move forward. It's not everything in the sky affecting us. So we're in the sky too. We're in space. We're a floating rock in a solar system. Okay? And so the sun and the moon are causal. That I'm most certain, because that's just how life is, right? They're causal in everyday life. But the rest of it shows a reflection, and it shows opportunity. We do not have, the future isn't set in stone. Let's put it this way. There are windows. We know when things will be intense, but that intensity could be good, it could be bad, it could be something in the middle. We have possibility, we have probability. You have free will, my friend. So you get to decide, even in challenging circumstances, how you're going to meet those, okay? The planets don't make stuff happen to us. They reflect timing and how we can meet it in a multitude of ways. And that's where astrology gets complex, because as an astrologer, and not everybody who reads astrology books is an astrologer, by the way. An astrologer, a practicing professional astrologer who has been mentored and trained and has practiced and built a practice, okay? That's why I hate the term astrologist. Facebook made that up. That is not a term. It never existed, by the way. Zuckerberg can suck it. Okay. An actual astrologer spends a lot of time looking at the different layers of expression. Okay. I do have my coffee. Oh, it's way over there. Anyway, guys, I've been on for an hour. I'll get this up onto YouTube. So, Carrie Wilson, medium Carrie Wilson. Medium Carrie Wilson. She's great. Tracy St. Croix is good too. They're both good. I'm friends with both of them. Pam Sears is good as well. Pam's a friend. You're welcome. I'll get more up on YouTube. Yeah, I'll get more up. I'll get this up on YouTube, and make sure when you watch my YouTube videos, if you can like them and share them, that would be nice, because that boosts it. So that helps me. I'm trying to get those hours to 4,000 watch hours. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching here. Have a great weekend. Oh, you know, it's my honor and my pleasure to make it. I love helping people, and we are in crunchy times. I'm not going to lie, we are. And I'm trying to help as many people as can hear me. So when you share or like or get it out in the world, you're helping other people get help too. So thank you. All right, guys, take care.